Welcome to our presentation about trends in greening the supply chain. In addition to going over some trends, we're going to also be making some recommendations for the company called Uline. Throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about what it means to green the supply chain. Then we're going to go into why you would want to green the supply chain. Then we're going to talk about how. We're going to go into costs for and against. We're going to talk about some trends, and then we're going to wrap up with some recommendations for Uline. Looking at the entire journey of a product, all the way from manufacturing all the way to delivery to a customer. The US supply chain alone is worth trillions of dollars, so this is a really big deal to make any efforts possible towards making these things more sustainable. Planning your production to be carbon neutral, finding ethically sourced ingredients, incorporating renewable energy into your supply chain, and then finally, you can actually decrease your costs by going green, going more sustainable. In addition to that, it's great from a PR perspective because more and more consumers are aware of these kind of efforts, and in many cases, they're actually willing to pay a premium when they feel good about how a company is, maintaining their green status. There are a number of reasons why companies might want to green the supply chain. One, it's quickly becoming table stakes, meaning that in order to be a modern company who is competitive, you're just going to have to do it because consumers are expecting it more and more. Nielsen did all sorts of research. They found that, consumers are aware of which companies do and do not participate in green sustainability efforts. They did further research and found that, companies that implement these sort of things, they actually are seeing faster growth rates. Some of that's probably attributed to the PR aspect of customers knowing that they're doing these sorts of things. Modern companies are also starting to view these sustainability efforts the same way that they did in previous years for quality. It's just going to be another thing that you should really do if you want to maintain your competitiveness in the modern world. And then many years ago, this was viewed as kind of a nice thing to do, but an expense. It's finally getting to the point where it's actually profitable if done right.
Ethical sourcing is focusing on human, animal, and environmental wellness. And some examples of this would be raising wages or providing maternity leave for the employees. Another method is green materials, in which the sustainable materials that limit resource depletion and minimize carbon emissions. And by doing this, it will lower the environmental impact. Reverse logistics would mean recycling and reusing. And if recycling is not possible, positive green supply chain management will undergo other disposal methods. And one is a closed loop system in which any products that go out will come back for some type of repurposing. Just-in-time method is avoiding excessive inventory by limiting how much is spent so that too much is not spent and a warehouse is not full of unnecessary materials. Efficient transportation is another method, and transporting goods over a long distance contributes to greenhouse gas emissions by burning fossil fuels. So EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has created a Smart Way program in which they track the emissions and employ fuel-saving technology. Green certification is another trend in greening the supply chain, and some certifications include LEED, Green Globes, and Energy Star. These certifications have more credibility when looking for a supplier. These certifications will regulate the eco-conscious methods and improve the current production methods.
For the cost of going green, it is going to be higher for newer technology and innovation due to raw materials being more expensive. So we have here a picture of a Tesla vehicle. Their battery technology is expensive, but they are zero emissions, meaning they don't emit gas and cause air pollution. But in return, this causes customers to save on gas and save money. Lots of people also invest in this company because of being a disruption company. As for going green for processes being done before, there's a reverse engineering, so costs are going to be low. In general, costs does depend on raw material chosen, like wood, plastic, and steel. So from there, you can do cost of volume profit analysis by subtracting expenses. And when you do this process for both going green and not going green, you can determine the net income and compare it to see if it had an impact. For the cost of recycling and reusing, in the end, companies are going to save money, so it is going to be cheaper since they are no longer buying new units, but figuring out the costs will be the same by finding net income, doing the units times the amount overhead, manufacturing overhead, and doing analysis, because there's going to be extra workers and they're going to be doing the recycling, recovering the material for future use. There could be metal and plastic parts melted down for other purposes. A fun fact, 1 ton of cardboard is equal to 17 trees. So when a company recycles it into new boxes, paper bags, or insulation, they are saving a lot of trees. So with the example of using the boxes, if you instead use plastic totes to travel, you would save the amount of boxes you used to buy. Remanufacturing replaces worn out or defective components. Sometimes they can be sold at 50% discount, and for that, you wouldn't need much skilled workers. Going green can increase the stock price of company because investors like investing in growth companies as well as disruption companies. Some examples of companies going green and having a big market share is Tesla, Home Depot, and Beyond Meat. With them being a corporate company, they must use their power to do the right thing. Otherwise, stakeholders are going to question their values and morals. This could cause stock price to decrease as well. And this did happen to Nike before with their factories overseas and dealing with labor issues. Strategic corporate responsibility is good for firms to take on ethical, moral, rational, and economic issues as it evolves.
Many companies still manage their business with Excel spreadsheets. Green supply chain information systems would help them combine traditional company financial data along with environmental data. The merge of the financial data along with the environmental data would help keep the companies honest, as all stakeholders involved would get to see both sets of data. Fossil fuels have been used throughout the supply chain for various transportation needs for many years now, and we're finally getting to a point where companies are considering other fuel sources such as electricity, biofuel, hydrogen, and more. Reduce, reuse, recycle. We've all heard this before. In terms of the supply chain, reduction can be as simple as not bringing as many different materials into the building, or finding a way to use fewer materials in whatever product you are putting together. Reusing could be, let's just say you have some packaging to bring materials into your company. Instead of using it once and throwing it away, set up a deal with whoever you get the supplies from where you send those packaging materials back and try to use them as many times as possible. And then lastly, recycling. It's something that most of us do at home these days, and as you'll see later in this presentation, not every company is doing this, and they should definitely look at it. Sustainable design is another thing that many companies are starting to look at. It's basically taking a holistic view and looking at the entire life cycle of a product, all the way from extracting materials from the ground or from trees to make a product, all the way to end of life. What happens when it's beyond its useful life? We can also redesign a product to use fewer materials, and in some cases, less toxic materials. And then finally, at end of life for many products, the common practice has been to just send them to a landfill. We're finally getting to a point where recycling is becoming more and more common. Some companies such as Subaru, for instance, they actually have gone so far as to design their products so they are easier to disassemble at end of life, and thus easier to recycle, repurpose different parts.
Industry we're going to be focusing on is the shipping supplies industry, and the company we're going to be focusing on is Uline. Uline's located in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin, and they make all kinds of shipping supplies. Some things that Uline can currently improve upon is that they do not recycle at their facilities, but they also use a ton of paper in their day-to-day operations. Before we start making suggestions to Uline, we should look at other competitors inside the shipping supply industry. The 3 competitors that we will be looking at is Amazon, Fastenal, and International Paper. For starters, Amazon has a green statement on their website, and they are pretty upfront with the goals that they want to hit by, whether it's by 2025, they want to have 100% renewable energy by 2025, but they have usually deadlines set for those dates so they can hit those. Fastenal is another competitor in the shipping supplies industry, and much like Amazon, they also have a green statement on their website. They're more upfront on what they do on a day-to-day basis, though. For example, they're very transparent with the fact that they recycle and reuse their products, along with a whole list of other things on their website that they do to make their own supply chain greener. International Paper is the last competitor that we'll look at. International Paper also has a green statement on their website. It's a big trend nowadays to put a green statement out on your website, but International Papers is a little bit different from all the others. They actually have metrics that they have to hit year after year, and they make those metrics public knowledge. For example, they have they want to reduce landfill by a certain amount of percentage in 2020, and they have what that percentage is versus what percentage it's at right now, which is a good goal to have. There's clearly a big gap between what Uline is currently doing to go green versus what their competitors are doing. And the shipping supply industry is a very important industry in order to make other supply chains go greener. So Uline is currently doing a great job on making other supply chains go greener with their biodegradable items and all their other green items, but they can do better. First and foremost, they should probably have a green statement somewhere on their website for other people to see. This will increase customer satisfaction along with other things. But to do that, they should set quantifiable goals as Amazon and International Paper did. This will kind of hold them responsible for the goals that they're setting within their own organization. Another suggestion for Uline is that they can take a page out of Fastenal's book and start recycling within their facilities, maybe reusing some products for their own boxes that they use in-house. Along with, they can also start increasing electronic usage and get rid of the catalog to stop all of the paper waste. There's many benefits as described throughout this presentation on why to go greener. Uline should take these suggestions and make their supply chain greener. Start out with small goals that they can hit year over year, and eventually they'll not only be making their own supply chain greener, but they'll be helping other supply chains be greener as well.
So as we showed throughout this presentation, sustainability is increasingly expected from modern companies. There's an increasing quantity of different methods and trends for implementing sustainability in the supply chain. You can start as small as simply recycling, or you can go as big as you want to. You can take a product back to the drawing board and redesign it to be more sustainable. And then finally, Uline has taken a few baby steps, but there's a lot more they can do, and there's a lot more they should do in order to be truly sustainable and be a modern company that is considering all stakeholders. In addition to their bottom line, they should also be considering the environment.